Hello, everyone. Welcome to Horses and Humans Research Foundation Webinar Wednesday. I'm Pebbles Turbyville, the Executive Director, and we have an exciting guest tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to one of our Equine Wellbeing Committee members, Joanne, so she can introduce her.
I'm really excited to introduce Tessa Archibald, who's a policy associate for the equine program at the Animal Welfare Institute and acts as the manager of the Homes for Horses Coalition. I will say I'm so excited that she's taken this position because I'm really encouraged by all the things that she's putting forward and all the things that she's doing. She holds a BS in biopsychology from Tufts University, where she served as the captain of the equestrian team, and a master's of science in animals and public policy from the Cummings School of Veterinary Medicine at Tufts. Before working with the Homes for Horses Coalition, she supported wildlife policy work at Wild Earth Guardians and spent many years working with horses, including at therapeutic and rescue organizations. She's trained in remote delivery of PZP immunocontraception and advocates for the use of fertility control in wild horse herds as a humane alternative to roundups and removals in Colorado. Tessa lives in Denver with her partner and her cat Meatloaf, and I'm really excited to turn this over because I'm really excited to hear what she has to tell us. So Tessa, all yours.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and thank you, Pebbles, for the invitation to join today. Again, my name is Tessa. I manage the Homes for Horses Coalition, and so I'm going to just kind of go through and talk about some of what we do with the Homes for Horses Coalition, some of the history, as well as some of the policy work that we are working on right now. Photos of some of the horses that are important in my life, as well as that bio again. This is my own horse, Chandler, here. I've had him for about 12 years now. And this is the horse that kind of got me interested in rescue. Her name was Jersey Girl, and I worked with her quite a few years ago now, but rehabbing her, and she is just a wonderful horse and really introduced me to rescue work. So the Homes for Horses Coalition was founded in 2007. It's focused on collaboration and continued learning to promote the professionalization of equine rescue. It was founded initially as an advocacy tool for ending horse slaughter, so specifically the SAFE Act. But it has kind of expanded its mission into what we're going to talk about today. The Homes for Horses Coalition is a coalition of over 500 organizations located all across the country. All of our organizations are nonprofits. They are rescue organizations, equine sanctuaries, or equine advocacy nonprofits, all dedicated to this communal mission of helping horses and preserving and promoting the welfare of horses and other equines. You can see we're pretty well spread out throughout the country. We have members in 48 contiguous states. We also have some international members as well, located in 7 countries right now, I believe. So I'm going to go through some of our values and our goals that help us achieve our mission just really quickly now, and then we'll dive into each of them in more detail. So supporting the professionalization of equine rescues and sanctuaries, ending horse slaughter and other forms of equine cruelty, advocating for laws and policies that improve the welfare and treatment of both domestic and wild horses, donkeys, and mules, connecting equine rescue organizations and other professionals to increase collaboration, providing a comprehensive resource library to support equine rescues, and facilitating homes and care for horses in need. Oops, there we go. So in terms of supporting the professionalization of equine rescues and sanctuaries, I will say HHC is not an accrediting body, but we do support equine rescues through some of the standards that we have for our coalition members. All of our members do have to apply to join and be part of our coalition. They agree to a few different things, and we have those standards in place to make sure all of our Homes for Horses Coalition members are looking out for the welfare of the horses. So of course, None of our members can have a history of cruelty or neglect of animals. Something that's really important to our coalition and for all of our members to have is first right of refusal. And so that first right of refusal means that if an equine rescue adopts out a horse, that horse is never going to be sold to another individual, placed in a situation that's, potentially a risky situation. That horse is always going to end up either back at the rescue or at another approved home. And so that's really important that rescues can keep an eye on their horses, keep tabs on all of those horses so that they never end up in a potentially bad situation again. Another important standard that all of our members abide by is no breeding of horses. And as well, euthanasia is used only as a tool. Oh, there we go. So in addition, all of our members abide by our basic guidelines document. So that's a publication explaining some of the standards that we have for our rescues in terms of managing their property and just making sure that all of those things are, up to the latest research in terms of how equines should be housed for their safety and well-being. So in our directory, this screenshot's a little bit outdated, but we also host this directory so that folks can connect with each other. And there's a clear place where equine rescues can be found, whether it's for collaboration from other equine rescues, whether it's somebody who has a horse who needs a new placement, or folks looking for advice in their local community. So one of our other missions, as I mentioned, Homes for Horses Coalition was founded with the goal of getting a coalition together of rescues, of sanctuaries, of folks working on the ground every single day to end horse slaughter and to be that, wonderful voice, really knowledgeable voice, and kind of boost that up to end horse slaughter. So we continue on that, mission and that fight to end horse slaughter. So all of our members, all right now 505 members, support legislative efforts to end horse slaughter. So they support the current iteration of the SAFE Act. In addition, we have lots of other resources on our website that can provide folks information about horse slaughter to learn more about that history and our perspective on why horse slaughter is inhumane. In addition, our coalition provides us a great community of advocates for equines, which may be veterinarians as well. And so having that community all together can really be a strong voice against horse slaughter and supporting the SAFE Act. In addition to horse slaughter and advocating for the SAFE Act, we advocate for other laws and policies to improve the welfare and treatment of both domestic and wild horses, donkeys, and mules. So Pebbles was just asking me if I've done much lobbying with HHG. I've definitely done some lobbying with HHG. Mostly we work at the federal level. All the bills that I'm going to talk about today that we're working on are at the federal level. We have advocated and lobbied and testified on behalf of some state level legislation as well. Specifically, this picture was from a bill for Colorado wild horses that we ended up getting passed. And during my introduction, you may have heard I represent the Homes for Horses Coalition on a working group to improve the management of wild horses here in Colorado. So super important to work on both domestic and wild horse issues. There are definitely lots of wild horses in transition, wild horses that end up in rescues, and definitely protections that can be really greatly improved.
Do you want to come sit over here and see your slide?
That realm as well. In addition, to doing that lobbying and testifying and advocating as Homes for Horses Coalition, we can also support equine rescues in their advocacy and their lobbying for equine protection issues. So on our website, there's lots of different resources about how to advocate for horses. Sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating to do that, or a little bit confusing maybe as a 501c3. And so we have resources available to support folks both on our website, or folks can just contact us if they're interested in getting involved. And we can really get folks involved in really, really easy, accessible ways. So it's not super intimidating. It's actually pretty easy to contact your legislators. On that same vein, we provide legislative updates each month to our community in terms of recent developments in equine policy. So if you're a part of our mailing list or our newsletter, you'll see those each month. And those provide, the most recent information about, legislation that you can either take action on or that has recently passed in terms of protecting equines in the United States. Again, usually that's on a federal level. So I'm going to go through and talk about some of our priority bills. Some of these you may have heard of, some of them are a little bit newer, so they may be new to you as well. Obviously, I've been talking a lot about the SAFE Act. So that's the Save America's Forgotten Equines Act. And that would be to end horse slaughter, to ban horse slaughter in the United States, as well as ban the export of horses for human consumption. So right now, you may be familiar, commercial slaughter of equines doesn't happen because of a prohibition on funding USDA inspectors in appropriations. It doesn't happen in the United States commercially, but it is still legal to export horses for slaughter to different countries. So the SAFE Act would ban that slaughter for human consumption full out, so they wouldn't have to pass through appropriations each year, as well as ban the export. So our coalition really sees firsthand the cruelty and really egregious welfare violations associated with the slaughter pipeline in the United States. All of our members run organizations dedicated to saving equines, and they participate in the interception of countless at-risk horses each year. Horses destined for slaughter are not broken, they are sound, they are healthy, they are young. They may be race horses, they may be beloved family pets, they may be iconic wild horses, as I mentioned, among others. Rescues in our coalitions place these equines in loving homes every single day. And the slaughter industry is a really cruel system that takes advantage of horses and people. So predatory kill buyers may obtain horses, often from unsuspecting owners, and then sell them to slaughterhouses for profit. Increasingly, kill buyers will use social media to take advantage of people, really sympathetic individuals and equine rescues, and they will instigate bidding wars and markups on horses, as well as threatening to send horses to slaughter unless they are bailed out. This system can really financially cripple equine rescues and ultimately reduce the number of horses that can be helped. This can also lead to horses being bailed out by individuals that don't really have a safe place for them to land. So unfortunately, these kill buyers, they will ship horses to slaughter no matter what, and no matter which ones are pulled. That can be a really hard thing for some folks to accept because some of these horses can be in really tough condition. But it is possible to rescue from auction humanely. But the scheme that I was just talking about, where kill buyers make money off of people and off of slaughter, it only exists because slaughter is legal and they're, legally allowed to do that and extort people in that way. In terms of why slaughter is, inhumane and why we're against it, horses that are sent to slaughter are shipped in crowded trailers for hours on end, without food, without water. When horse slaughter plants operated even in the United States, USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, documented extensive injuries to the animals arriving at slaughter plants, including broken limbs and really extensive bruising. Some horses do not even survive the journey to the processing plant, and they perish en route. Within the slaughterhouse, terrified horses are stunned using a captive bolt, which can involve several blows. For flight species like horses, as we know, this experience induces extreme stress and panic. Equine slaughter is not humane, and it's not humane euthanasia. Humane euthanasia is that last, good deed that you can do for an animal and put it out of its suffering. Slaughter is not that at all. That transport, that experience honestly compounds the suffering and extends it. It is not humane euthanasia. One of our other bills that we work on is passed, which is horse soring, prevent all soring tactics. So horse soring is a really horrific practice in usually the Tennessee walking horse industry, but also, spotted saddle horses and racking horses. And these horses are abused to get this really unnatural movement out of them called the big lick. So corrosive agents are applied to their legs, really painful chemicals and kind of like baked in there. It's really, really horrible. They will wear shoes that are stacked extremely high and made heavy. And those shoes can also disguise other implements, other tools that would be put in their hooves as pressure points. And all those things make the horse's hooves extremely sensitive so that they pick them up extra high and they look a little bit more flashy. It's really horrible. But in 1970, the Horse Protection Act was enacted in order to try and get this horse soring under control, but it still persists. The Horse Protection Act wasn't complete enough. The industry currently utilizes self-policing, so designated qualified persons, so DQPs. Those are the people who are investigating at each horse show if soring is occurring. But those designated qualified persons, they're often employees of the organizations that host the shows. They often participate in Tennessee walking horse showing themselves. And they're the ones looking for, abuse. So they may have personal connections with folks, or they may, really have an interest in making it look like soring is not occurring at these events. According to some recent data from 2021, USDA's review, actually, industry inspectors found an overall compliance rate of 99% at 209 shows. Whereas when USDA sent in inspectors, so a third party, they found a compliance rate of 69%. So complete discrepancy, and soring is obviously happening. It's just not being reported. So thankfully, there may soon be some changes to this. The USDA is working through some regulations now, a new rule with some improvements to the HPA, including ending that self-policing system that I just talked about and banning some of the action devices that really aggravate horses' legs and non-therapeutic pads, so those really high stacks. So hopefully that rule, can be finalized soon, and those changes can be made. But the PAST Act goes even further than that to provide protections to horses for this horrible abuse. Some of the other bills that we're working on, these may be newer to some folks. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Ajiao Act. So Ajiao is a gelatin produced from boiled donkey hides. It's used in traditional Chinese medicine and cosmetics. This has really increased in popularity in recent years, despite there being no clinical trials or clinical, peer-reviewed research demonstrating benefits of this medicine. But it's been really increasing in popularity in recent years, and it has ultimately decimated China's donkey population. From 1997 to 2018, that population plummeted from 9 million donkeys to 2 million donkeys. So to meet this demand, the product is now really imperiling donkey populations around the world. It spurred this global trade that involves immense suffering to the animals involved and severely impacts the communities that rely on donkeys. Oftentimes, those can really impact women as well. Donkeys may be this wonderful opportunity for women to reduce workload, provide transport, provide opportunities to go to school, carry water, things like that, that can reduce workload on different communities. And these communities are really being affected as this price of donkeys, they're very desirable now for this purpose. And it can really damage their communities. Donkeys can also be stolen from those communities. And then, in terms of animal welfare, they're transported for really long distances without food or water. They're killed under inhumane and unsanitary conditions. Some of them are transported for hundreds of miles without food, water, or rest. A report by the Donkey Sanctuary actually found that up to 20% of donkeys will die before they even reach the slaughterhouse. Traders care only about the hides, as that's what this product's made of. And so with no oversight, there's little incentive to provide care during transport. In that slaughterhouse, donkeys may be killed with a hammer before their throats are slit. While mainland China and Hong Kong account for much of the demand for this product, the United States is the third largest importer in the world of Ajiao products, with approximately 12 million in annual imports. You can buy Ajiao on Amazon, you can look it up, and there's hundreds of products. You can actually buy it also in your local markets. I found Ajiao in multiple stores in Washington, D.C. just a couple weeks ago. The Ajiao Act would ensure that the United States no longer supports this inhumane trade, thereby setting a precedent for other nations to help shut down this market. Now, recently there was an international update on this topic, as the African Union agreed to a moratorium on the slaughter of donkeys for their skins, but it remains to be seen how this will be enforced by each country. And of course, it's super important that we set that precedent as the United States to shut down that market within our own country. The Horse Transportation Safety Act is another bill that we work on. This bill focuses on the transport of equines in double-decker trailers, which can cause real concerns and welfare issues. Double-deck trailers are designed for cattle and for pigs. Oftentimes the headroom is less than 6 feet. It can be, much lower than that actually. So for horses, of course, that can cause real discomfort. It can cause injuries, and in case of emergencies and accidents, can leave horses in really serious trouble. The last bill I'm going to talk about is the Wild Horse and Burro Protection Act. So this is a newer bill as well, focused on banning helicopter roundups of wild horses. So this bill, it really looks at the inhumane way of rounding up specifically. So these federally protected wild horse herds all across the West are subjected to extreme stress and potentially fatal injuries through these helicopter operations. These operations utilize low-flying helicopters that chase panicked animals, including pregnant mares, including foals, including elderly horses, all across the landscape. Under the BLM's guidelines, wild horses can be chased in temperatures as high as 105 degrees or as low as 10 degrees. However, the same guidelines are silent and don't say anything about how long and how far those horses can be pursued by helicopter. There are viable alternatives to helicopter roundups, which don't cost more. Bait and trap, for example, offers a low-stress method to gathering wild horses and burros. And I mentioned, during my bio, I'm trained in PZP immunocontraception delivery. So that's humane fertility control for wild horse herds. That's not specifically what this bill is about, but it's a humane and viable alternative to roundups, as those humane fertility control applications can reduce and level out those wild horse herd populations, and horses can be managed in a safe way. So those are some of the bills that we work on. I know that was kind of a lot. Some of those address really upsetting subjects, but I think that's why it's so important. And so I would love, everybody here today, anybody listening who cares about equines that these issues really speak to. I would encourage you to take action or to do some more research and then learn more about these issues, and whether your legislators are co-sponsors on these bills, and how can you take action. One of the ways is hop onto our website. We have action alerts on there that are super easy to fill out, but equally as easy is just contacting your legislators with their phone number, is write them a letter or send them an email. And you can do that pretty simply online. So another thing, kind of wrapping up that legislative advocacy talk, and hopping back more into what the Homes for Horses Coalition does in terms of our resources for specific equine rescues. Our site has a pretty niche, curated library of resources to support equine rescues. So on our website, you can find information, regarding fundraising, regarding grants, safety nets, all really important information that, can be beneficial to equine rescues, but also beneficial to owners and keeping horses in their homes. So those safety net programs are really important. Information about volunteers. And then, some equine care information, of course, is really important, as well as, other resources that can be beneficial for nonprofits. Um, just hopping into this world can be a little bit intimidating. Folks often get into it loving horses, and that's, that is the mission of an equine rescue, but getting that support from helpful resources, webinars, and also from our community can also be really beneficial to make sure that they're being as effective as they can be. The last kind of mission piece I'm going to talk about is facilitating homes in care for horses in need. So sometimes folks will contact the Homes for Horses Coalition in need for, various reasons, whether they have horses that are in their community that are in need, and they're not sure who to call, whether they have their own horses who they're looking to rehome, whether they're struggling that month with hay, all of those different reasons they might be calling. I can provide compassionate support to them, compassionate resources, whether that's connecting them with another equine rescue that may be a good fit in their community for their horses or for their sanctuary, or connecting them with those safety nets, which I was talking about. Those safety nets can really be essential to preserving that human-animal bond. Those horse owners, if they're in a good home, they are loving their horses, and the last thing they want is to have to rehome them. And so those safety nets can be really, really integral in preserving that relationship and making sure those horses can stay in a home that loves them and is just going through a tough month or two. Another thing that I do is, try and provide education to the public about horse ownership. One of the ways that I did that, is taking a survey of how much it costs to own a horse in various areas of the country. I think this was last year, so not in 2024, but, pretty up to date on terms of what does that look like? Many horse owners may get into this world not being ready for what it takes to own a horse. It can definitely be a really great financial impact as well as a great, life impact in terms of, how long you're going to own your horse, things like this. And so just providing folks with that education before they get into it, just so that they're completely aware, I think is really important. And just that public education piece, because that could potentially, those horses could potentially end up in transition or needing a rescue when folks get into it unaware of what that looks like. So I think the public education piece is really big. And, if I can create resources that rescues can share and that are valuable to them as well within their own communities, I think that that's really important, and we can all work on that public education piece together. So much like HHRF, we host webinars as well. So kind of goes along the same lines as what I've been talking about, webinars that can be really helpful and specific to equine rescues, but they may not specifically be about horses. We've had Joanne on, we've had folks talking about caring for wild horses in sanctuary, focusing on emergency situations, focusing on therapeutic riding, and lots of other things that can be really helpful to our community and just act as a resource and as a learning point for anyone who's interested, really. Connecting rescue organizations and other equine professionals for collaboration. So I think this is a really big one that I've been trying to push in this virtual world, because obviously collaboration has changed a bit and can look a little bit different, but I've been putting into place some virtual opportunities for folks to connect in terms of sharing resources, sharing experiences, good experiences, bad experiences, having that mentorship within the community, I think is really important, for in any field, of course, but especially in this field where there is always so much to learn, never ending learning with horses, as we all know. Um, so providing those collaborative opportunities and resources for folks to ask questions as they experience things for the first time. Some of our members have been running equine rescues for upwards of 20 years, 30 years, whereas some folks just started in 2024, just got their 501(c)(3). So there's a breadth of experiences and a lot to be learned from everybody's personal time. And so I think that collaboration is really important. So I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about just some of the challenges that I personally in Homes for Horses sees into equine welfare. I think there's a lot of room to grow in terms of the greater horse industry and horse lovers in terms of equine welfare. The first thing I think of in terms of improving equine welfare and how the greater horse industry can do better is money. If some of that money, there's a lot of money in the horse world, as many of us are familiar with, and if some of that was given back to support horses in transition, or for more retirement communities for horses, or sanctuary, there might be more resources for horses in transition. I think just by being a part of the horse community and just by loving horses, you should really have an interest in protecting them. Whether it's just, where's the horse that you are working with coming from? Where are they going to go if they're no longer a good fit for you or for your program? And a little bit outside of that, how are the horses in your community being treated? How, can you ask those questions about the horses in your community? What about within your discipline? How are they treated? How are they managed for their lifetime? And truly, horses are a few sales, sometimes even one sale away from being a rescue horse or being in transition. I think on that same vein, horse lovers, it's important that folks open their minds up to rescued horses. A rescue horse is not a specific horse. They're any horse that can fit into any role. Any type of horse, any sport, there is a horse in transition that can do that job and, be your best partner. I think making it more normalized to find your fantastic partner at a rescue and just not assuming things about rescue, but assuming that they're a reputable place to get horses for whatever you're looking for your horses. Sometimes rescues can even be, I think a better place to find a horse. They're going to be a lot more transparent than say a flipper or sale barn. They'll know a lot more about that horse and really want to preserve that best fit for owner and for horse. And they'll always have the best interest of that horse at heart in terms of, having that first right of refusal. And in terms of, just learning more about this topic, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today, and just providing more public education on these topics, I think is really important. And all of us can do our part in that, and talking about rescue and, talking about slaughter, rescues as an essential part of the horse community. It's not something that's talked a lot about in traditional equine spheres, or at least not in many of the places that I grew up. I think because it's pretty uncomfortable. We all want to say that we love horses, but at the same time, many folks can turn a blind eye to the underbelly of this world, of the greater horse industry and how horses can be treated. So I think just opening up that conversation and being able to speak about it and being able to share it with the public, the non-horsey public, but also the horsey public as well. And then I just have a few things about the future of equines in transition and how I kind of see that. I've talked a little bit about supporting owners to keep horses in good homes. So in terms of, things that can improve is providing more resources to help owners to get through those hard times, whether that's a hard time in their own personal life or whether that's a hard time in their horse's life, like a vet emergency. and helping people be aware that those are available. Again, having these programs is absolutely incredible and fantastic, but if nobody knows that they exist, then they're not going to ultimately help horses. I think another important thing is kind of reducing the stigma around asking for help. I don't know if reducing the stigma of asking for help is something that, is just isolated in the horse world. I think that's kind of a greater societal issue, but, just being able to have people be aware and just know that, they can reach out earlier on as opposed to when situations get really, really dire. I think that could make a really big difference for horses. And again, just public education on those topics and how can we get those topics to the people that need them. And the same kind of thing. How can we get education for new horse owners? I was talking about the cost of equine care. I think gelding goes into that as well. And how can we take better care of our horses? The HHRF Wellbeing Committee, they have a lot of incredible information, new research about how we can best care for our horses and have that optimal well-being and, small changes that can be made, but also, longer term changes in terms of how horses are managed in the United States and elsewhere. I think that it's really important that that information can be, shared. And as we get new research and new data on what's best, how do we disseminate it in a way that can be applied in the average horse's home? So I think just getting more folks and more horsey folks involved in that conversation is definitely really important. The last thing that I wanted to touch upon is the Homes for Horses Coalition Conference. So HHG has had numerous conferences in the past, most recently in 2018. So it's been a couple of years, and we're going to have a conference in September in Washington, D.C. So we're going to be, having the conversations that I just talked about, discussing what everybody thinks about the future of equines in transition, and learning, about equine rescue and that equine well-being steps that can be taken there. So this will be again, in DC, right by the Capitol. We'll also be having a lobby day. So I know everybody learned about our priority bills today. So this would be an opportunity to take personal action, lobbying, going office to office and talking with your legislators as a constituent about why this is so important and why they should care about equine welfare and, what's affecting the equines and the animals in their communities. So yeah, just a little plug for our conference. If anybody is interested in attending, we would love to have you. And thank you so much. I know it's not exactly a full hour, but I hope everybody got something out of this presentation, and let me know if you have any questions.
Well, thanks so much. That was a lot of information, and
Certainly.
It's the whole donkey piece that I've been working with Brooke, the USA, so that's something that we've talked about or she's told me about, and that just is so disturbing to me. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to see if there are any questions in the chat. Or
yes, there's one question in the chat, and then I have a question. Question in the chat is, where would we find information on the conference, and particularly about submitting an abstract?
Sure. You can send me an email with respect to the abstract. I think that would be fine. And in terms of more information, there's more information on our website and on Facebook as well, if you want to check that out.
Awesome. And then Tessa, I was gonna thank you for sharing this. And I think most of us realize how big of a job this is you've taken on, and how thoroughly and passionately you've taken it on. And I was going to ask is there a story or an event that prompted you to become such a passionate advocate for the horses?
Yeah, that's a great question. Here, I'll scroll back to my first slide. I had some photos up there of, so during my early, I don't know exactly how old I was, but my early teen years, I volunteered at an equine rescue, and so really got involved with all of the horses there, with the community there. I found, the horses had a huge impact on me, but so did the people. I really loved being surrounded by a community of individuals so dedicated to equine welfare and caring for horses. So that was definitely, what inspired me to get involved with this field. Again, this little horse, Jersey Girl, was definitely the inspiration as well. If you know halflingers, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
that maybe that's all I need to say. Like,
Yeah, you do.
imagine a halflinger with like no training. It's so she was just a barrel of a girl and would just push through any person, any fence, anything in her way. And, just being able to just support her and have her, trust me that I wasn't going to put her in a situation where she needed to bowl me over. That was just a really meaningful experience for me. So I think that she like specifically is what has made me so passionate about this and gave me that personal understanding. I was talking a little bit about like, just rescue horses as doing any job and just being horses and not, having a specific stigma around them. She did eventing with me, she could do anything. So I think that was really moving for me.
Awesome. Thank you. There's another question that came through. Someone has asked, has been trying to sign up for the newsletter on the website, and it's been hitting submit and it's not uploading. Is there another way to sign up?
Yeah, Nikki, if you either want to put your email in the chat or just send it to me personally, I can add you. And thank you. I love to know sooner rather than later if something is broken. So perfect.
Yeah. I feel your pain, Tessa. It's a good thing and then a sad thing. You need to know. Nancy has her hand up.
Here, I can get rid of the.
Hey, Tessa, Nancy Pascal here. A couple of questions. One on the slaughter side, are you concerned that people in the slaughter business will simply change their terminology from slaughter for human consumption to slaughter for pet food or something like that?
Yeah, so in terms of the animal consumption question, you know, right now commercial slaughter could open in the US for animal consumption, and it doesn't happen at a huge level. And so I think that this is our fight right now, and the next one would be to focus on animal consumption.
And then my second question, having worked on legislation for 20 years regarding walking, racking, and spotted saddle horses.
Yeah.
Yep. And one of the issues that I've seen is that there'll be federal law, but for example, when I was in Virginia, there wasn't any Virginia law. So there simply were not enough USDA enforcement. There was no way to enforce it because you didn't have enforcement agents. So, we worked to create parity with the federal law by creating state-specific legislation. Do you see the need to do that for all of this, right? It's easier on the transport side because that's got federal regulations all tied in with it. But if the PAST Act were to go through or some variation on it, do you see that need then for that work to be done in all 50 states?
Yeah, thanks for your question, Nancy, and thank you for all of the work that you've done on the issue. That's incredible. Specifically with PAST and with potential new regulations, my understanding is that they would require an APHIS inspector or somebody hired by the USDA at each event, as opposed to passing that off to somebody else. So the regulations that we would like to have in place are that oh, there's nobody available, then you can't have a horse show. That's kind of the level that we would like to see this get to.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work. This was extremely informative.
Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you. There are two more questions if we have the time.
Yeah.
The first one is for those that are not aware of the survey that you and Tufts are doing. Can you give some info on that?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the plug. I'm working with some researchers who I've worked with previously. I went to school at the Tufts Center for Animals and Public Policy at their vet school. So they are doing research for equine rescues and sanctuaries and humane societies. And so we have a survey going around right now. And I can throw the link to that in the chat for anybody who is interested. There's some research that's been done, in this field, but there is very, very limited academic published research to help support rescues and sanctuaries. And so having publications of that sort can be really beneficial to, provide more information to legislators, to, policymakers, to grant people who have money, anybody who's going to provide grants. All of this information can be really beneficial in that sense. And, just having a little bit of credibility of the academic institution and having that published would be fantastic. So there's my plug, and I will go find the link and throw it in the chat.
That sounds very useful. And also, is the membership just for 501c3s? Or what type of individuals can be part of the organization, and what would the role of that individual be?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Nikki, for the question. The membership is just for 501c3s. If you do have, another interest in the field, we also have a kind of supporter application. If you are a veterinarian or a law enforcement agent, maybe a farrier, or a professional in equine roles, there may be an opportunity for you to get involved in that way. And yeah, we have a supporter application for folks like that for equine professionals on our website.
And that would be like as a volunteer?
More like supporting advocacy initiatives, I would say. I mean, if you want something to do, okay, I'm sure I can find it, but no, we don't have specific volunteer roles.
Well, that is all the questions.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. I do too. You go first, Purpose.
Well, we talk about social licensing, and I'm like, how can they still do the things that they do to walkers? Like, that is just insane. And you would think out of anything that would be knocked out right away. And that's more of a statement than a question. Like, it infuriates.
I can tell you, I've been working on that for 25 years. I've worked on it with HSUS at national level. We've worked at it with some insiders we had on the executive committee at TWHBEA. We've done all kinds of things. And I think part of the problem is just like with all the other bills that she's been working on, you can't imagine how crazy people are. And so it's hard to write legislation to overcome the crazy when they are thinking on a whole nother level. The first time my husband we were at the horse park, and he saw a saddlebred show horse coming into a nighttime show. He literally was like, what the hell was that, as it came by? And it had stretchies on. It's going into the stall, into the show with stretchies on. I mean, just, it's absolutely insane. And those of us that are, I'm not saying I'm sane, but those of us that have a little bit more of a grip on how you should be treating an animal, in my personal opinion, I can't imagine doing the things that they do. But they imagine things that we are not willing to even consider. And Tessa, you are all over it when you say that we, as the horse community, this is very difficult for us to talk about. We shove it under the rug because we don't want to talk about it because it's so freaking horrific. But at the same time, so few people are educated about it. When I talk about walking horse things, a lot of people are like, "What? That's still a thing?" I mean, because it's so hard to get people interested in doing it. So I appreciate you getting over all of these things in such a short period of time to give us an update on some of these kinds of things.
Thank you.
I'll shut up now.
No, I
No, I
appreciate it.
appreciate. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, and I kudos to you, yeah, Tessa, to deal with this because it's so horrific, and you would think that when social licensing is just going after so many different avenues, that this, I don't know, maybe they're just not aware because maybe they're just in their own little bubble and nobody knows, I don't know.
Could be
Yeah.
too that this has been going on much longer, whereas the things that we're finding in other realms are new. People just kind of assume it's either there or it's always been there and it's not maybe doing harm, because it's been around so long.
And one other question was about the saddlebred world pulling out of the USEF. Is there a chance they'll be wrapped into the PAST Act?
I'm not specifically sure about that. I don't know if I can speak to that, but I will look into it. I really appreciate everybody's engagement and, feedback on this and personal experience in this realm. And just like, it's very empowering to be with a group of equestrians and horse people and passionate folks who are educated and motivated to help horses. So I just want to say that it means a lot to be here.
Well, we appreciate you doing what you do in all aspects, boots on the ground, but then also putting your high heels on, I guess, and dealing with the politicians.
I'm almost 6 feet tall, so yeah, when I wear heels, nobody can say anything.
Just scrape the manure off before you walk
There
in.
you go, Mercy.
I don't know. Some people might need some manure.
That's true.
I'm kidding. Just a joke. Anybody else have any more questions or comments?
This was wonderful.
Yeah.
Just thank you.
Yes. Thank you again.
Yeah. And we need to keep doing things like this to keep getting this message out because it's so important.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't have a question, but just sort of a thought that, you mentioned collaboration and you showed that slide with all of the different organizations. I think I can speak for HHRF that we are fully on board with all the things you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I deeply believe in collaboration and in like-minded people creating a force to be reckoned with. So let's just all keep that in mind. If there are things we can do, together, then strength in numbers.
Yeah, and I was really impressed that you were, doing some research on this because, again, the research that you're doing is so important to the whole horse community, which is what HHRF is all about, is getting this research out to the general public so we can use it for, the betterment of the horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your shout out too for what our Equine Wellbeing Committee is doing, because they're all about making sure the health of our horses are good and that they're being horses, So thanks again for that shout out. But yes, we are all about collaboration because in order to make change happen, it's got to be a force to be reckoned with. And so if we all unite, we'll be able to make things happen.
Yeah.
So, All right. Well,
Well-
thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and end the session, but if anybody else has any comments afterwards, you can stay on.